Welcome to Larry's Library. And this week I read Night Fever. This is the new hardcover original graphic novel from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, two of the greatest people working on comic books today. I got the little hardcover. I say little because it is standard size, much to my chagrin. I would much rather have this beautiful art oversized. But you know what? It doesn't look like that's going to happen with any of these releases. They seem to prefer the standard size format. So, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy it as much as I can and hope that one day we get a deluxe that collects a bunch of these together and it's even larger. You know, it could happen. So yeah, this one is from Image. It is 120 pages. The list price on it is $24.99, but, you know, don't be a chump. Get it at a discounter. InStockTrades.com, where I got it, has it for $14.49. So that's a pretty hefty discount. Yeah, I had no trouble with the build on this one. I mean, it is a standard size hardcover, so, you know, you get a little bit of a mousetrap effect, but it's nothing major. You can live with it. So, you know, there you go. As I already mentioned, this is the Dream Team. Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips. Sean Phillips pencils and inks the whole thing. His son Jacob Phillips does the coloring, and it's also excellent. And I have to say that I've read the first, I think, 3 now of the Reckless series, and I had commented, and my buddy, my cousin Elmo had also made the same comment, that it seemed like Sean Phillips' art had gotten a lot looser and sketchier and not quite as appealing, you know, as they got into the Reckless books. Still great, but not the tighter, you know, slightly heavier, more detailed art that we'd become accustomed to in earlier works. Well, I am happy to report that this one kind of brings that back, because the art in here, as you can see from these scans, is perfect in my view. It really is. It's just beautiful. It's gorgeous. At no point did I think, oh man, that was a little light there, you know, a little sketchy. But no, it's just beautiful Sean Phillips at his best, in my opinion. And I had seen several reviews and heard several reviews of this book before I read it, where people were saying this was not their best work and that it was sort of phoned in. They weren't as engaged with the story, you know, and so I went in with pretty low expectations. I really did. But I'm happy, again, I am happy to report this is one of my favorite reads of the year so far. This will be in my top 10 of the year at the end of the year. I'm quite certain. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was riveting. It held my attention throughout the whole thing. And yeah, now, it is a different kind of story from them. So if you're going in expecting criminal or kill or be killed or reckless, then therein lies your disappointment. You are going to be disappointed, because it is a little bit different than their typical crime noir fare. Now, it is certainly noir, and it does involve some crime, for sure. But it is very, very different in the way that it's told and in the main character. He's different than Ethan Reckless. He's different than any of the characters we've seen before with Brubaker and Phillips. And that's a great thing. It shows the range these two have. A couple things that it immediately reminded me of, especially the first half of the book, was the 1984, 85, maybe they both came out in 85, 2 films this reminded me of a little bit. Into the Night, a John Landis film starring Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer, and a Martin Scorsese film called After Hours that starred Griffin Dunne. Griffin Dunne, he's the other guy, one of the main guys, the one that gets killed and talks to his buddy as a ghost in other great John Landis film, America, Werewolf in London. But in this, he's directed by the great Martin Scorsese, and I'm talking about After Hours. Now, if you haven't seen either of those films, please do so, because you'll love it. It's fantastic, and both of them have a sort of similar plot device, at least in the beginning. It's about people that it's about a guy that has trouble sleeping. So he goes out and he goes walking after hours into the night. I used both titles. See what I did there? And all kinds of misadventures ensue and wild shit goes down. Okay, and now both of those movies, especially Into the Night, have a lot of comedy as well as being a suspense thriller and crazy characters and shenanigans happening. But and this has less of that. There's really little to no comedy in this whatsoever. It's a little darker and a little more intense, but it has the same sort of vibe in that it evokes those kind of plot ideas because it's about a guy having trouble sleeping, and then he goes off into the night walking, and he gets himself in all sorts of trouble. So that's about as much as I want to reveal the plot. But this becomes an existential nightmare for this guy, is what it does. And the story here taps into something that is very common. I feel like it's among men more than women, but that could be just because I'm a man and I'm trying to look at it through that lens. So it's probably just a human thing. And that's the sort of existential midlife crisis a person can get. And it really doesn't even have to be midlife. Because, I mean, I had thoughts like this when I was an emo teen. Before the term emo even existed, that was me, okay? So, but it's where you rethink life choices and you imagine, well, what would happen if I had not gone to work at this crappy warehouse, maybe could I become a film director, a writer, whatever. And, when I have these thoughts like this and I talk about this to my wife, she's like, well, then you're saying you don't want to be with me because we met at that crappy warehouse, how do you, and that's just not true at all. I mean, we did meet there, yes. But as I point out to her, I could think of 100 different ways that we could have met, besides that we were both dumb enough to get ourselves locked into a lifetime of working in this shitty warehouse that we work in during the day. But I digress. So it doesn't mean you want to throw away the great things about your life just to wish you could rewrite other aspects of it, But anyway, so this guy is having one of those sort of midlife crises, I guess is the word. And he ends up wandering into this private nightclub where he actually assumes the identity of someone else on the ledger, just on a whim, just because he was bored and he couldn't sleep and he was having all these dark thoughts, so he just decides what the hell. And that begins the spiral of this plot. And it's a good one. Yeah, so I don't want to give anything away, but hope you like taking a look at the art, and I hope you do pick up Night Fever, or at least read it in some form. I know it's available digitally. But yeah, I loved it. I thought the art really kicked it up a notch for Sean Phillips. I'm glad he returned to that more detailed form that I loved more, although I did love the sketchy version too, but I like this more solid version better of the Sean Phillips art. And yeah, so this is a very different kind of story. It's a more personal story. It's a darker story. And yeah, so you kind of have to be in the right headspace to enjoy this. And this came to me just at the right time, and I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'm always up for an existential crisis, so maybe it's just me. But yeah, I loved it. It's a nice done-in-one. It's a quick read also. I read it in two settings for me. 2 sessions, I finished it. But yeah, it's 120 pages, but it goes fast. And I really loved the ending. I thought it just tied everything up nicely. Yeah, so I think it's great. I give it 10 out of 10 easily. And I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on it. So post down below after you've read this book. Tell me what you think. And subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm going to see you next time.